So these are actually my first fully KISS quads. I've been flying KISS flight controllers for like years and years and years. As far back as like the flight controller I flew before I switched to KISS was CC3D and OpenPilot. And then I saw a tutorial from Final Glide and I managed to get a hold of the KISS board at a certain, and long story short, I swapped to KISS and it was like night and day. I'd never flown anything better. Like it just felt amazing. And I've been flying KISS flight controllers ever since. But I've never flown KISS ESCs because there's many reasons for that. Part of it is the price. I just felt they were too expensive for what they were. They were too fiddly to put together because you had to solder all the little wires on them. And then, you know, somewhere along the line, as I got kind of better at this, you know, 4-in-1 ESCs came out, and there was like, I just prefer 4-in-1 ESC. So I've been using KISS flight controllers V1 with BL Heli, BL Heli S, and BL Heli 32 4-in-1s forever, just because it keeps the arms cleaner and it builds more compact and cheap too. Like you can get a BL Heli 4-in-1 for pretty cheap, so even if it fries or whatever, you can replace it, no problem. So I just stuck with that. It just worked. Flew really well, loved it, haven't changed it for years. Until last weekend when I had a, I don't know, weird crash or something happened, but basically my last BL Heli 4-in-1 died. And I had no replacements, and so I'd either have to like buy a new one. But when I switched to these Badger frames, I also actually did buy a V2 KISS flight controller plus the KISS 25 amp 4-in-1. And I'd always intended to do the swap, but when I swapped the frame, I chickened out at the last minute. I just want to try out the new frame, see how that was, but I didn't want to do a whole rebuild and stuff. So I just took the old guts and dropped them in the frames, and it flew well for some stupid reason. I didn't even have to retune, just flew awesome. And so I just stuck with that because it's reliable, and all I have to do is grab the quad off the wall and charge lipos and go out and fly, and no faffing. But yeah, last weekend I hit that wall where it was kind of like, right, am I going to keep investing in getting new stuff for this old setup, or am I just going to use the new shit that I have in my desk drawer that I just haven't tried because I'm lazy? So that brings us up to today. So, you know, stuff happened. I finally broke too many things and I couldn't fix it. Basically one of the ESCs in the 4-in-1 died, the BL Heli 4-in-1, and so I had to swap it to a new one, and then the new one didn't work, and then the KISS V1 flight controller started not working, and I wasn't getting telemetry, and so everything just went downhill, and I had one quad that just became a pile of, like, it was just terrible. It needed a rebuild, and the only parts I had to rebuild were the KISS V2 plus KISS 4-in-1 stacks that I had hidden in my desk. So I thought, fine, let's just do this thing. There was a lot of things going for this setup though, so I was excited about it. So once I committed to it, I was like, you know what, this should be cool, because not only do you have the KISS 4-in-1, but you have the KISS V2, so it's got a better processor on it. One of the nicest things is the little ribbon cable that goes from the KISS flight controller right into the KISS 4-in-1, so you know, you don't need to like rip apart your signal wires and solder them one by one to the signal pads on the ESC and get that all right. And so it's a lot less fiddling. You plug one wire, solder on your LiPo connection, and you know, solder up your motors, solder up your receiver, and that's really all you have to do. Oh, you have to solder on power as well. I noticed that the V2 board's also a bit better designed. It's got bigger pads for the power, you know, positive and negative, which is kind of a crappy thing about the V1. It had tiny little VBAT in things that were sometimes hard to hit and solder really securely. So overall, just really nice. The bind button is better on the V2 flight controller as well, which you may not think is a big deal, but it's just nice to have something that doesn't break. And together it's so nice that I rebuilt both quads within just a few hours for each quad. It was super, super smooth. I have not changed the motors or anything like that. Still the same old motors. The bells may be a little bent and all that, but there's a lot to be excited about with this setup, as long as it doesn't break. So I came out today, flew it for the first time. It flew smooth, straight out of the box. So I tuned these quads in about maybe an hour and a half. I came up with a pretty nice tune that I tried out on this quad. So this was the test quad. It got crashed. I kept tuning. So even with bend props, old motors and all that, this thing flies like super amazing. Out of the box, the thing flies super smooth, and you could totally just not touch anything and just fly. When you're tuning a quad, assuming that the basic quad is fundamentally stable, all you're really doing is refining the way the quad reacts. You're refining feel. You could almost say it's subjective. Well, you could argue that. It's a subjective thing. You're tuning just to make the quad feel a little bit crispier, more responsive, and stuff like that. And of course, you're not wanting to bring out any bad behavior like vibrations or oscillations or all that kind of nasty stuff. You don't want your motors getting too hot and all that kind of stuff. The old school way of tuning was to try and go as aggressive as you could before bad behavior started happening. I don't really do it that way. All I do is I try to make it crispier until I'm just happy with how it feels, and that's it. And then I just sort of stop. So I don't try and run the most aggressive tune I possibly can, because I don't really care. I just want the quad to feel nice. Once it just starts feeling nice and it's behaving well, I just leave it alone. And I can always adjust further on if I really want to, but I got to that point really, really, really quick. So I've got to say, like, these things fly insanely good. They do probably fly better than my other quads. There's just a little less prop wash, a little smoother. They fly like a friggin' dream. I could not be happier with the way they fly. I hope that the durability is there. So I hope that I don't start like frying motors and ESCs and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think I will, because when I've been bringing this quad down after flying it, the motors are barely warm, even after I'm done with my whole tuning stuff. And I've already tuned it so it can handle bend props and all that kind of stuff. And even then, I picked the quad off the ground and there weren't hot motors or any, bad signs. I've been flying it around, punching it. There's no capacitor on this quad, which is interesting. KISS says, yeah, you don't need a capacitor and da-da-da. So I didn't run one because I thought, why have one if I don't need it? And I can always put it on if I do need it, but I haven't seen any video problems or anything like that. No flickering, no lines, no nothing. So it's working really, 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 really well. Really, 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 really well. I am surprised I could get it tuned in such a short period of time to such a high level of where I am just super happy with it, and it's doing exactly what I want in my mind, give or take. I even adjusted my rates a little bit, just for the hell of it, just a touch. And I just love the way things are working at the moment. I'm really blown away. Now, the KISS stuff is not for everyone, for sure, because it's just really expensive. And it doesn't, just because I have a good experience doesn't mean everyone who buys this stuff is going to have an amazing experience. I find that there's two scenarios people get into. So scenario one is you build a new quad and the thing generally flies pretty good right out of the box, and then you just fine tune it and that's it. Scenario two is when you have a problem quad. Now, a problem quad scenario is a whole different kettle of fish tuning wise than scenario one, where your quad is fundamentally working fine and you're just trying to perfect it. When you have a problem quad, meaning that like there's harsh oscillations or vibrations, or it's just getting unpredictable, or a motor's getting hot, or it's flopping, that is a whole other situation. And I would argue that most of the time it's usually down to either a hardware issue or just a tune that is just completely wrong. But in that case, where you have a bad quad and it's vibrating and stuff, in my opinion, you really need to go back to basics. You need to like take off all the filters, put the PIDs at like, just dial them way the hell down, even from default. And you've got to really troubleshoot every single bit of that quad. Every motor, vibrations, this, that, maybe certain frames have resonance. And that can just take a lot of time to figure out, but there is no fast way around fixing a problem build. It takes time, and you've got to dive in, and you've got to be really patient. You might even have to replace certain components for whatever reason. I usually find it's the more aggressive quads with the stronger motors, or just unconventional frame designs, or mixes of different flight controllers and ESCs, and I don't know, maybe it does happen to guys on the KISS side. I don't see it as much on the KISS side of things though. Like, as long as someone's flying like a brand name frame and a decent KISS setup, I generally don't see many problems. I think it's when you get into really high performance like motors with those tight air gaps and those mega strong magnets, that's maybe where you start to see some problems, because the tolerances are just so tight and those things are just so highly tuned. It's maybe one thing that causes people problems a lot, and I would argue that's a hardware thing. You could probably tune around it, but I am not discounting that those scenario 2 things happen, and in fact for a lot of people that does happen, and they get really frustrated and really annoyed because it's really hard to get out of, especially with something like Betaflight where you have a bazillion different filters. And I'm not saying Betaflight guys are stupid, but it's like Betaflight setups just aren't as transferable as KISS in my opinion. Like, the reason I still like KISS is because it's still simple. It's basically a PID controller, so you have PID, you have one filter which is your dynamic notch filter, and what else? That TPA adjustment, and that's pretty much it. That's all you got to mess with in KISS. Oh yeah, and it has the LPF filter too, but there are not many variables in KISS that you need to play with to get it right. And so worst comes to worst, you can leave the adaptive notch on and just bring your tune like even down from default if you have to, until you get the quad running smooth. If the quad just doesn't run smooth, probably a hardware problem. But I can troubleshoot a KISS quad way easier than I can troubleshoot a Betaflight quad. And so that's why I just stick with KISS. And Betaflight just changes every firmware, or every other firmware release too, and they add new stuff, and it's just, it would drive me nuts, and I feel bad for Betaflight guys who have problems, because it's like, how do you, there's so many variables in that, and why do you need all that stuff? You just, whatever, man. I'm not saying Betaflight sucks. It has its advantages. You can do a lot more things with the Betaflight quad, like GPS and all that cool stuff, like, and weird programming. And Betaflight does have its place, and it's insanely good, and it's free and open source and all that stuff. So it is really cool. I just find it's a lot harder to tune, and ultimately I think I just love the way, in my opinion, I love the way KISS flies. When I grab my quad and I'm flying, I just love it. It feels organic, even to this day, and I'm happy to report that it still feels that way on this new full KISS build. So I'm super happy, not changing. I just hope that it proves to be reliable. That'll be the big question. Like, when I go out and start hitting bandos and stuff, it's gonna be really interesting to see if this KISS gear holds up, or if it just, breaks in 2 seconds. Alright, so here's the final tune, version 1 tune on this guy. This is how this is all set up. What I really love about the KISS ESC is you can do this little adjustment here. So depending how you mount the 4-in-1, you can correct the orientation here really easy without having to like repin all the motor signal wires. Love it. This is the final tune. It's not insanely aggressive, but it just feels good. And that's all I really care about. So, super simple, man. When I'm tuning, I hammer the crap out of the quad, doing all these crazy moves and stuff to try and get it to misbehave. So now that I'm happy with it, I can just start flying for the fun of it. It's getting a bit dark and all that, but whatever, I'm not out to make like the most epic video today or anything. I'm just out to kind of validate these setups, get them working, get them tuned reasonably well. I was fully prepared and expecting it to probably take like 2 days to truly perfect this stuff, but it's gone really well on the first day, and I don't know, I'm just lucky, I guess, or whatever. Finally I get to fly this sucker for fun, because the hard work of tuning is done, and I'm just very happy that it all works. So let's mask up. Oh yeah.
Time has ceased, space has vanished. Ours is a brand new world of all at once.